This came to me today and I decided to put it out, if for no other reason than to clear my mind for the evening. Trigger warning, suicide and self-harm. In 2005, I was a 25-year-old new dad, married with a house and a stressful job paying for it all. At the end of the year, I lost my mother. She had been the only family I ever had, the only stability in my life. I was destroyed. I mean, literally my entire life felt like it was spinning. One day after work, I had tried to get my in-laws to take my then one-year-old daughter for the night while my wife was at work so I could finish schoolwork. I don't remember their reasons, but they couldn't do so, and I was going to have my daughter with me that night. She cried. All night long she cried, held her, fed her, played with her, swung her, burped her, changed her, it didn't matter. She just cried. I was so distraught, so lost at what to do. I hate to admit it, but I just screamed at her, a loud guttural scream right in her face. It didn't help at all. She went wide-eyed and silent for a moment, then cried harder than ever. I sobbed. The shame I felt at myself for that moment of weakness, I sobbed, and I held her, and we cried together. Eventually she was asleep. I put her in her bed and I went into the kitchen and sat. There was an hour before my wife would be home. I just couldn't do it again. I was so stressed, so broken at the loss of my mother, and so fearful that the hate I had in that moment with my daughter would ever show its head again. I ate a bottle of pills, fully intending on killing myself. I vaguely remember my wife trying to wake me up when she got home, and the next thing I know, it was the next day around 1 p.m. I got up and staggered to the bathroom where I was sick for what felt like all damn day. All in all, I knew I had failed in killing myself, but no one knew. I told my wife I had been sick the night before, and that's why I had asked her parents to take our kid for the evening. No one ever asked any questions. This went on for almost 3 years. I would spiral internally and I would contemplate suicide because I couldn't cope with the loss and wouldn't dare say to anyone that I was hurting. I just put a smile on, acted fine at work and fine at home. And unless I was alone, I could almost kid myself into believing my bullshit. I attempted suicide 2 more times, once by hanging. The rope broke loose at the knot on the rafters, and I fell to the floor of my garage, bruising up my face and neck as I fell. The other time was again pills, but that particular time my body just violently rejected them. Within minutes of taking them, I just started vomiting, and before I knew it, they were all out and gone. One day, when my daughter was 4, I came home from work, tried again to get my mother-in-law to take my daughter with her so I could finish schooling for work. She refused, and I didn't even fight it. I just said okay. I had gotten laid off that day. It was my 3rd job in a year and a half. And it couldn't have been at a worse time financially for us as my wife was pregnant with our 2nd child. I had every intention of ending my life that night. I had brought a length of rope from work, I had tied a pulling knot for pulling equipment with a rope, and I told myself today was going to be the day. I made my daughter her dinner, chicken nuggets and corn because it was the only thing she would ever eat from me that wasn't pizza. I watched her eat. She was absolutely lovely. I figured I'd give her a few hours to play and then put her in her bed. Then I'd make my trip to whatever lay after this life for me. I called my wife and checked in on her at work. She was busy and really couldn't talk, but I told her that our daughter had eaten and I was going to put her to bed and then spend some time in the garage, that I'd most likely be there when she got home. I told her I loved her, and we hung up the phone. My daughter played in the living room with a stuffed rabbit that she carried everywhere with her. I sat down on the couch and just zoned out. I didn't know what I was thinking, or what was even going through my mind, but suddenly, my daughter was between my legs, standing at the edge of the couch looking up at me. She looked at me like she saw through everything I'd done, and all the failed attempts that I had made, and she just leaned in and kissed me on my cheek. She said I looked sad, and then had her bunny kiss me too, so that I knew I was extra loved because its kisses were healing. So she said, "I cannot tell you how that broke me again." I took her in my arms and I sobbed. I held her to my chest and I kissed her head over and over again and I cried. I put her to bed that night, but I never made that trip to the garage. I left the rope spooled up on the floor of the living room and I awaited my wife. When she came home, I fell at her feet and sobbed. She never said anything as I confessed the reality I had been living, never said anything to blame or hurt me. She just took me in her arms and held me. I got the help I needed. I went to therapy to see a counselor. Took me some time, but I eventually got my mind back in check. Our daughter was old enough to really not remember it as an adult. My daughters both still live with us. One is now 20 and the other is 17 and have no idea that I ever went through anything like that. The reason this comes up today is because my oldest was looking for a flash drive with family pics and such on it, and I told her I thought it was in my desk drawer. So she went in and searched, only to find her stuffed bunny rabbit that she had as a kid. She brought it out, looked oddly at me, and asked why I had that in there, as she had not seen it in years. I just smiled and laughed a bit. I asked her if she remembered playing with it as a kid, and she said of course she does. I asked her if she remembered how she said it had healing kisses when she was little. She didn't remember that, but said that she remembered me telling her its kisses were magical and healing when she would get hurt because I would always make the bunny kiss her and her sister's boo-boos. I started to reply but then was asked again, why was it in your desk? I got up, took the bunny in my hand, and then made it kiss my oldest daughter's cheek before telling her, that's where he lives now, and returning him to the desk drawer. My daughters will never know the struggle I had. They will never know that I was so close to giving up. My youngest owes my entire existence in her life to that rabbit. I owe everything I am today and everything I've experienced in the last decades. I love her more than I can ever express.